This is my audience in the beginning.
A quote by Pam Brown from the sisterquotesabout.com website. A younger sister is someone to use as a guinea pig in trying sledges and experimental go-karts, and someone to send on messages to mom, but also someone who needs you, who comes to you with bumped heads, grazed knees, and tales of persecution, and someone who trusts you to defend them, and someone who thinks you know the answers to almost everything. But what my sister doesn't know is how much that I need her to. And before I get into my speech on honoring my sister, I like to tell you a few resources I looked up to help you better understand my topic. And they were sister quotes from the About.com website, sister quotes from allbestmessages.com website, sister quotes from Think Exist website, as well as interviewing my own little sister. And my name is Christina Rodriguez, and I'm going to speak on honoring my little sister from the time we were young and could barely have a conversation with each other without getting into a fight, to two, when we were both in high school at the same time, when I was a senior and she was a freshman, and now at that time began working together because we were on playing softball together, and three, to now where we have more than just a conversation without fighting with each other, and just having to work together because we're on the same team, but because we have that sister relationship that has grown over the year and has made us best of friends. A perfect sister, I am not, but thankful for the one I got from the sister quote allbestmessages.com website, and this leads me to my first main point, and us when we were young and could barely have a conversation without getting into a fight, kind of like rivals. And because my sister and I, we are 4 years apart, and when she was first born, I was so protective over her, I wouldn't even let my grandma get close to her without me being next to her. But when she started talking, that's when all our troubles began. People always mistake us as being twins, but we may look very similar, but we are nothing alike. She is very talkative and always speaks what's on her mind and always has to have the last word, while I am a more quiet, reserved person who keeps things to myself and doesn't say what's on my mind because I don't want to have the last word. I'd rather it stop the argument and end it right there because I don't want any more part of it, but she's not that way at all. And having these two different personalities always made us clash with each other and always be in arguments. And it started making me believe that we were never going to be close sisters, and she would always copy me and do everything she could, and that she knew would get on my nerves and get me in trouble because I was the older sister and I knew better and not to act that way as well. And to those who have sisters, know what it's like to be with them. You can't ignore them because they sometimes can be very noisy and irritating and know exactly what buttons to push to get you to that point. But childhood without my little sister wouldn't have been a childhood worth having. Which leads me to my second main point. When we were both in high school, I was a senior and she was a freshman, that we began working together since we were both playing for the same sport, softball. And when I was a senior in high school and she was a freshman, it wasn't until then that I realized I had to be someone she looked up to, as well as someone who watched over her so she wouldn't make decisions that would affect her negatively once I was gone, especially since we were both going to play together in the same sport called softball. and I was one of the more respected players on the varsity team, and the pressure was on her to stand out from behind my shadow. And it was then that we began to work together and set aside our differences so we could have a successful season and people would recognize the difference between us, and rather than her just being C. Rosal's sister. And working together brought us closer, where we grew a new respect for one another, even though we weren't on the same team. As she made junior varsity and I was made varsity, she learned how much hard work to put in so that the next years she could make varsity and make a name out for herself. And it became where she started asking me for advice sincerely, and I wanted nothing more than to help her and be that person she looked up to, because secretly I had always looked up to her and how she spoke her mind and never let anyone push her over, while I just always kept my mouth shut to please others. And as we've had our differences, going through this experience has brought us to the relationship that we have today. And now we have that relationship that has made us the best of friends, and we truly love each other, and not just love each other because we're sisters, but really do love each other. And she has been the person who has always been there for me, and one that I can always count on, because we've been through ups and downs that nobody else could understand. And I have never been more proud of her, because this year in softball she's finally made a name for herself in earning the awards of second team all-district as a pitcher, as well as MVP, and even academic excellence for the year. And she just keeps amazing me with the maturity at her age and the goals she has set out for herself, that with the great grades that she has and hard work that she keeps putting in, hopefully she will be joining me next year at Texas A&M. So, in conclusion, and having a sister like the one I do is more than I could have ever asked for. And as a sister is probably the most competitive relationship within a family, but once the sisters are grown, it becomes the strongest relationship. And a quote from Margaret Mead on Think Exist website, and I completely agree with that, because now I couldn't imagine my life without my sister, and I am just as protective over her as I was when she was born.
This is my audience at the end.